All right, well, so welcome and thank you for being here for the first playtest of Agenda, which is a meeting-based game. And it has a lot of inspiration from kind of like role-playing games and LARPing. And so the reason why I kind of went down this path was because, one, I think I wanted to have a way to experiment with different types of like dynamics inside of meetings, different stances for individuals inside of those meetings in a way that was kind of safe and maybe could be used, inside of an actual meeting. But I think the rules, the way we've written them so far, is that this can just be tried just in general. And I think not only do we want to experiment with new things, but I think for people that are not used to doing anything beyond just like the agendaless meeting, maybe they're not familiar with the way that other types of dynamics could work or the way that they might choose a stance inside of a meeting. And so I think this is a way to introduce people to different types of meetings like Dory or Lean Coffee or Diverge Converge, like a bunch of these different kind of dynamics that I think are valuable in some way. And so what we're going to be using today is, we don't really need a game board for this. What we do need is we do need dice. And so I actually, if you have dice, that's great. If you don't, I actually have I'm going to share my screen. I have a dice. You can just basically with Google, if you do dice roll, it will have a dice that you can do here for like a 6-sided dice. And all we need is really a 6-sided dice or multiple 6-sided dice to play this game. And then I haven't really done any slides yet. I want to package this after we've settled on things like the rules and kind of the dynamics that will be in here. And I'm thinking like some type of funny, kind of kitschy, bad slide look for this as a way to package it. 2-up kind of like slides on a handout type of thing. But before we do that, I wanted to at least like walk you through some of the rules and the way that this works. And then what I really want to get is actually your feedback, because this is the first time that I'm play testing it with a group of people. So I want to just learn like what works, what doesn't, what feels weird, what feels good. Those are the types of things I'm looking for here. Maybe as like a round zero as well. I also just like to say, we should try to keep this as meeting-like as possible. So, swearing is okay, I would argue, but we should try to, beyond that, I would say let's not try to touch on any harmful subjects, things like that. This is referred to in the role-playing game world as like veins and lines. I'm not going to do the full veins and lines or like no-go areas for this, but wanted to at least just like put that out there. Like let's put this into a box that we would usually have a meeting, and that we're not going to do toxic or harmful behavior as much as possible. To walk you through this, essentially, I wanted to give you a note about the dice for a second. So one of the things is that you may end up being asked to roll a dice, and if that's the case, just use this. It's easy to use. But there's also this dynamic called a D66. And a D66 is where you roll basically two different 6-sided dice, or you roll them once in succession. And if you roll something like a 5 and then a 1, that means you would get a 51. Now, this doesn't get you all the numbers in between one. It basically doesn't give you all the numbers in 1 and 66, but it's a way for us to just like very easily roll on a table, because a lot of what we're going to be doing is going to be randomized in some way. Now, the way that the game will be played, and I'm going to walk you through all of the rules. I will actually, let me share this document with everybody as well so that you can follow along. There's some stuff crossed out. I would just ignore that for now because I'm trying to decide on the dynamic. But the way that this works is that, first of all, we will decide on a meeting format and a goal of the meeting, and I'll show you how we're going to roll that. Everybody will create them for themselves, and you can do this with like just a notepad or a piece of paper or in like a document somewhere. You're going to create an employee that you will play. We will then decide who are the managers of the meeting. And there could be more than one, by the way. So I think there's some interesting dynamics that could happen. And there might be 0 managers actually in the meeting. We'll all introduce ourselves, and we'll keep some things hidden. And so I'll talk about what that means in a second. But you'll basically just like, for whatever the name of your employee is, you'll give that, and then just a brief introduction. But you do not give away kind of like your secret style that you're bringing to this meeting. We will then start the meeting. And we're not going to have a lot when it comes to managing how many rounds there are necessarily, or how people contribute to those rounds, because I think that there was like I was trying to build that mechanic, but it feels a little overwrought. So I will also, I'll play a meeting attendee, but I'll also be kind of like the facilitator. And so what I will do is every now and then I will roll a complication that will take place. And that complication, I'll announce it, and then we'll move forward and continue with the meeting. And then at a certain point, we either decide to adjourn the meeting, or I've been thinking that we will like require these to finish within 25 minutes. I actually think the gameplay will be even shorter, but we'll see. So I wanted to like just give that as a note. So when you create an employee, what you need to do is you need to create a name. You need to roll for your secret employee style. And then you need to roll another dice to decide whether you're a leader or not in that meeting. So let me now talk a bit about like the different random tables that we have here. So one is the employee style. And so again, this is a D66 roll. So you'll roll a D6 once, a D6 twice. You'll put the two numbers together, and that will give you something in this range. So you can see here, like I've pulled in things like the 6 hats, and then we've made up a bunch of other ones that are going to be in here. We'll also, at the beginning, as the facilitator, I'll roll for a meeting format that we will use, and I'll give a description of what that meeting format is, so that like how we will actually do that dynamic. And then we'll roll for a meeting goal. And these meeting goals are a combination of two things. So one is a type of meeting, and then the other is a topic that we will talk about. So for example, like a progress check about lunch would be one possible role. I've tried to make these pretty generic and kind of just like a little bit funny, because I think like they should, we want to practice this meeting style, but I think like in the real world, if people wanted to use this method, they could substitute their own goal, their own type and topic if they wanted to. And then finally, the complications end up being a bunch of different things that will cause chaos in the meeting and make us to maybe take a different tact. So those are the main random tables. So what I guess we'll do, any questions about any of this stuff? Because then I'll roll a meeting format and goal, and then all of you will roll for you'll name your employee and roll for a secret style, and then we'll get the meeting started. But let's pause here for a second. What types of questions do you have? Nothing? All right. All right. So why don't everybody think about what your employee name will be? And I want you to go and roll what your employee style will be based on this, okay? And I'm gonna turn off the screen share so I don't give away my secret style. All right, is everybody able to do that? All right, and then I'm going to now roll a meeting format. And I'm going to roll a goal. All right, how's everybody doing? Has everybody rolled their secret style? Any questions? Okay, so we are going to use as the meeting format a lean coffee, and we are going to plan lunch, and that's going to be our goal. So actually, because we're doing lean coffee, if we're physically there, we would use like a bunch of sticky notes, but let me create a new board and I'll just spin that up right now. But just as like a quick explanation of lean coffee, essentially what we do is we spend some short period of time putting together a bunch of topics that we want to discuss, and then we dot vote those topics and then go in priority order of that dot voting. So that's the kind of lean coffee format. Any questions about the format, about the goal, anything like that? No?
I'm sure I'll have questions as we go while I try
Yeah,
to figure
totally.
it out. So,
Totally. All right. Let me share this. And I'm gonna make it editable by everybody. And so now I'm pasting in the chat Zoom the Miro. Nobody should have access to it. Everybody able to move things around or edit? All right, so let's get playing. So as the facilitator, as I said, we're going to use Lean Coffee and we're going to start planning lunch. And so to do that, why don't we spend 2 minutes ideating topics that we would like to talk about, and then we can get started from there. Does that sound good to everybody? And by the way, sorry, forgot about introductions. My name's Carl, and I'm going to be your facilitator today, but I'm also an employee. And yeah, so I'd love to hear who else is in the room right now.
I'm Bill, and I'm looking forward to lunch.
Okay.
I'm Starshine, and I think lunch is great. What a great idea.
I'm Sally Sue, and I'm really hungry. So
It's a good
this
topic.
is awesome.
All right. Cool. Well, so I will turn on a timer here in the Miro, and let's spend 2 minutes coming up with topics about planning lunch. And you can go off camera if you want and do that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to dot vote. And so what I'll do is I'll get rid of all of the stickies that are not used. And what we're going to do is we're going to dot vote, and we'll use the Miro mechanism. So we basically, when we are dot voting, I think based on the number of things here, I'll give everybody 5 votes. And because I'm using a very scientific method for that. And so now I'd like to give everybody some time. So we'll take like 2 minutes or 3 minutes to review all the sticky notes and then to dot vote. So I'm starting the thing now, and let's get started. Does everybody have access to it? I think you have to say start the voting session or join the voting session. All right, I see everybody in there. All right, so 3 minutes. See that everybody except for one person has finished voting. There we go. All right. All right, let's see what we got. Miro is now preparing the results. And the top one is length of lunch, including travel time. And so we'll start with that topic. Who wants to get started? I mean, I guess my question is how long has like past lunches taken? Maybe one time out here for meta point. I do want to start using basically like improv like rules. So whatever someone says is actually part of the discussion now, and you can disagree if you want to as part of like your style or whatever. But we should like if someone makes up a fact, we should talk about that as a fact and then use that as for the next like while basically as a fact. And you can disagree with the fact or whatever, but if someone makes up something is all I'm saying, like we should yes and that for the most part, right? Okay, so time in. That's my question is, I think like, do we actually know how long it's taken last time? Because I think I've been at lunches that, have been like 45 minutes long, 55 minutes long, an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes. What do people think?
I think our colleagues can cover for us, and we could go for all afternoon.
I don't know. I think that might be kind of exciting, but I'm really curious what Chris thinks. Or Bill, or I can't remember your name.
Sorry, Carl. Yeah, Carl.
Yeah.
I think
Uh,
whatever it takes to build the relationships, right? So I'm in for like all afternoon.
I mean, it feels like that, from the standpoint of, don't we have other meetings later today, though, I feel? Does anybody have meetings today?
Oh,
I have
Carl,
like two or
that's a
three
really
after
good
this.
point. That's a really good point, Carl. I love it. Well, I think we should go with that then.
Okay.
With
So,
with
so,
what?
so,
Whatever Carl said.
What whatever Carl said. Yeah, but wait, Nick, what's your name in this meeting?
sorry, let's change our names to our
Oh,
thing.
I was trying to find that option. I can't see it.
If you do the three dots up in your video, it will then rename as the
Of
last
course,
one.
rename is.
Yeah.
There we go.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like maybe like an hour is about the average that I've found that actually most lunches go for.
Yeah, but we have a lot of people and we have to account for travel time and we just really want to have fun with this. So like and maybe we can extend it a little bit.
Mm.
It's a good way to meet more people. So let's let people know we're going for lunch. See how many turn up. See how long the conversation lasts.
Well, I think before we can decide the travel time, we have to decide where we're going to go, though. So maybe we put down like an hour for now, and then we decide in a little bit what the actual travel time would be to the place that we go to.
That makes so much sense. I'm on board for that.
So like an hour eating time is what you're suggesting, Carl.
Actually, I'm saying that we should probably, because we have an hour for lunch, that we should look at the time that's travel time and then take that away from the total hour. So it's not an hour of eating time.
Where's your sense of fun and adventure?
I just want to make sure that we're on time for these things.
I'm
Carl's
sure
got a really good point.
we can stay in touch with the office, so we can go. I mean, we can be working from the transport and be working from the restaurant. So we'll only be sort of out of contact for an hour.
All right. Well, why don't we table that for now until we can figure it out? Does that sound good to everybody? Let's move on to the next topic, maybe. All right. So the next topic is, what is statistically the best lunch for everybody?
The longer one all afternoon.
I'm so glad you asked this question. I honestly don't understand how to answer it in any way. Can you maybe help?
Well,
you want variety, don't you? So that everybody can get what they want. So the nearest buffet we could spend an hour at, I think, is statistically the best lunch.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea because then everybody can have just what they want.
Okay.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
curious, Carl. I mean, you've been to all these places around here. And you've got such great taste. What is it that you've enjoyed best?
Well, I mean, I think like there's probably like, isn't there what is it, it's called Golden Buffet, I believe, that's nearby. It's focused on Chinese food, but maybe that's the right place for us to go. Does that work for everybody?
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Yeah, that works for me.
I love
right.
that
Lots
idea.
of good vegetable options.
All right, so we're going to go to Golden Buffet, and I believe it's a 10-minute walk each direction. So that will give us about 40 minutes of time to eat there.
At least.
Well, at least, well, yeah, but depending how many people we have, if we want to, continue to, build relationships, we might want to think about extending it a little bit.
Okay, we can talk about that. I think I just want to make sure that we have like the right setting of expectations for time. So like, what do we think? It's 15 minutes each way. So does that only give us 30 minutes of eating then?
I'm sure we can do it in 10.
Walking or eating?
Oh, walking, eating. We'll stay in touch with the office.
All
Yeah,
right.
because yeah, and then thinking about the time, right? Because it also takes a little while for us to get checked into the restaurant and people to get their food, and you got to factor that in too.
Well,
All
I think
right.
that's
So
why
we're
his idea of going to a buffet was so great, right? Because you
Yeah.
just get the plate and walk on through the line.
all right. And by the way, I forgot. I'm going to add a complication now, which is what we just rolled was a 36, which is executive preference. Mid-meeting, an executive expresses a strong preference. Let's see
I've
here.
never experienced that, so that's new for me. No,
Okay,
I'm just
so
kidding.
it's and so actually, the executive preference is rolled Sally Sue as that preference.
Is what?
Yeah, so the executive preference mid meeting, an executive expresses a strong preference for, and I rolled the dice, and it's Sally Sue's option, and
Oh,
basically we're shifting and requiring justification for other options, basically.
oh.
So
Basically,
as far
what
as
I
your
want to do
preference, yeah, that's right.
for where we go or how long?
That's up to you.
You're the
So yeah,
executive.
yeah. The
I didn't
executive
realize
is on your
Sally
side.
Sue is the executive.
No,
Gosh, I'm
Sally
new
Sue's not the
here.
executive.
Sally, I would love to. I did, and you were talking about overnight too, right? Or not overnight, just an
Yeah,
afternoon.
we can.
No, I'm here for an overnight lunch. The executive has backed Sally Sue and said we want an overnight lunch.
Well, I really do like the idea of a buffet. I think that's good because people can pick and choose
Okay.
what they want. And yeah.
All right.
Also, with a buffet, you can get up, you get something, and you go and sit somewhere else, get introduced to new people, and it's not being rude.
Oh,
As opposed to having to be in the same spot. Yeah, that's a great
Mm.
idea.
that's clever. It's like breakout groups in a workshop
Yeah.
with dim sum or something. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Also, I think I would like it to be a little bit longer. So maybe we have to look at our afternoon calendars and see what we might need to adjust.
okay.
So people don't feel rushed, like they have to like pick their food, eat really fast, and not really get to build relationships.
Sally Sue, how long are we gonna go? I know that you've got authority to clear our schedule, so I'm
Yeah, well, I'm looking now to see which of these meetings I actually have in the afternoon. Yeah, I think well, at least one of these can be pushed off, which frees up several of you in this group too. So, because you were in
Okay.
those meetings, so yeah. I think if we allow for travel time over there, like if we allow 30 minutes total travel time to the buffet, yeah, we can spend at least an hour there at the restaurant, but more if
Okay.
people are interested. I'm up for that too.
I
Okay.
got time for ice cream.
That's great. All right. So I guess we're going to go for an hour and a half, right? We're gonna specifically go for at least an hour and a half.
Minimum,
Okay.
minimum, yeah.
All right. So I mean, I would like to give us a range. So like, what are we saying? An hour and a half to 2 hours, 2.5 hours?
What do you all want to do with that? Like, I'm pretty open on that, up to a limit. Overnight's probably a little too much, but yeah.
All right. And actually, so going on to the next subject, we've already covered. So we'll say 2 hours for now. And we've decided where to go. We've decided what to eat. And the next topic that was voted on with 2 votes is spiciness.
Ooh.
Oh, well, that's up to people to decide, isn't it?
But do we
You're-
know what dishes and what spiciness levels there are at this buffet, I guess?
Oh, I'm sure it'll be fine. It's
Because
a
it's close,
buffet.
people go there a lot.
Well,
Are we
should
sure it's
find
talking
out
about the
before?
dishes?
Oh, that's a new angle, Starshine.
What kind of spicy lunch might this be? Maybe that gets into the next question.
Well, yeah. So actually, yeah, I thought spiciness meant food, but you're right. It could be the who. Maybe yeah. Let's move on to the next topic then. Who to invite? Who should we be inviting to this? Should we just invite the entire office?
Oh,
What do
I'm
you think,
looking
Sally Sue?
Yeah, I'm looking at Sally. You've got the
Yeah,
executive
well, I
back
think
in.
everybody's that's in today in the office working in the office today should be invited.
Okay, so that's like, I think that's 13 people. So I'll put down
Okay.
13 people.
Including accounting?
Oh, I forgot about accounting. That's a good point. We really have to get the specific number here. So is that 16? Just want to be very clear, like, so we can, when we get there, we know the number of seats to ask for, the size of the table, all of that.
And or some small tables, right? Because you know, Bill said earlier, right? People could go to
Yep.
different places. Maybe want like some small tables coupled together or in the
All right,
same
so
area.
for 16, we should ask for how many tables? Like maybe 4 tables? Does that seem fair?
I think that's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
All right, great. And so yeah, we have to like write down a list of all the people. We'll have to send it out via Slack to everybody, and then I can go around and make sure that like everybody actually is yes or no on this.
Yeah, and tell them like we need to give them a place to meet to walk over there. So like time and place to meet. So
All
nobody
right.
gets left behind.
Totally. And I'm going to roll one more complication. And the complication is 23, which is ongoing construction or loud noises from nearby disrupt concentration. Every action request for information must be repeated and clarified loudly. Okay, so it has to be clarified loudly because of that. So I guess I would say that, well, yeah, sorry, go ahead. I'm taking too much space.
I was just going to say, you're not at all, but I was going to say, well, that's an excellent reason to spend the entire afternoon not in the office. Because then we don't have to shout at each other.
Sorry, what?
What was that?
I can't hear you. So given that though, we might want to be really clear in the Slack messaging and all that, yeah, because people may not be able to hear, you know, things might get lost in translation if it's just verbal or lost in the noise.
What do you?
Yes, things might get lost in the noise.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we should like, you know, double down on clear communication in the Slack channel.
All right. Okay, well, I guess we're out of topics that have gotten more than one vote. So I'd say we should adjourn this meeting and we go get lunch. Is that okay with everybody?
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, what time are we meeting to walk over?
Yes, that's a good point. Let's do noon.
Noon.
What?
Okay.
At 12 o'clock
Noon.
p.m.
At the front doors.
Okay,
At the
okay,
front door.
okay.
What did you hear, Starshine?
10? No, 11,
12.
right? 12.
12 p.m. 12
12.
p.m.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Got it. Okay. To walk over to the Golden Buffet.
Yep.
Right.
All right. I'll take the action item to make sure that everybody is RSVPing. Okay. All right. So I'll get the RSVPs.
Okay,
Awesome.
is Bill going to do that?
Yeah, Bill. Bill? Do you need to do anything or any other action items?
No, I'll see you at 12.
Okay.
At the front door.
Front door.
Front door,
Okay.
everybody. Okay.
Okay, bye.
All right, and scene. So thank you, everybody, for performing. It was really good. Thank you. You did an amazing job. I'd love to hear, like, what did you take away from that experience? Maybe what did you learn? What surprised you? Anything like that.
I want to work with all of you, I think, is the first thing.
Actually, yeah, when you give your feedback, why don't you tell us what your secret style was? Or actually, before you do that, actually, can someone guess what Bill's secret style was? Let's try that.
I have to look at the list again.
Yeah.
I think it was all about like connection is what I feel like. I'm trying to think which one that was. Oh, the networker. I think were you the networker? Or what do you think, Sally Sue?
I'm looking at the list now. Oh, I don't know.
I think Sally Sue was a joker.
No, I did. Sally Sue did not play her role very well. So, which I'll, you know, when we get around to that part, I'll share about that. But Bill, what were you?
I was an optimist, which is which is interesting because that's not a role I usually play in a meeting or conversation. So partly that was just an interesting aspect of this is so the first response to anything is be positive. So that was actually that's just interesting, and I think there's some value in this format for just giving people a really simple aim
Yeah.
and finding how instinctively they act against it.
Yeah. Interesting.
So, I mean, and for sort of feedback overall, it's genuinely interesting. It's not. I realize it's not that relevant, and I don't. I mean, I only know
Yeah.
Chris, but just
No.
always how. Sorry, I mean, it's sorry. This isn't relevant feedback, to be clear, is what I meant. But
Oh.
I'm struck immediately at how creative people can be. Rather than we all just played like a child would play. Oh, you're playing this. Go is really, I think it's a really nice and interesting thing to do with adults as well
Yeah.
in the right situation, and especially making assumptions about some of you. I think it's easier for Americans rather than British people to do that. Like, and I mean, there's been threads recently on LinkedIn about how people sort of literally hate role playing. People will not go to training if there's even the threat of you're going to be in front of everybody and be given a role. But if you can create the right environment, it gets people thinking about how they perform, what role they perform in meetings. Also, I really like the introduction of a format. I mean, I've not worked for I've been self-employed effectively for 5, 6, 7 years. But before that, worked for companies for years, and I don't think there was really any formal meeting format. It was just we'll all be in the same room and discuss, or on the same conference call. We'll discuss a thing, and then decisions will come out the other end. So just using this as a way, yeah, absolutely. So just as a way to say this is a format to think in, I think is brilliant as a way to, as like the gentlest introduction to people. Part of me think it needs work, as in you need to give people more detail,
Okay.
but also I think depending on the people you don't. I think, and also just introducing everybody to the idea of improv, and just yes and someone says like you say, should we invite the accountants? So we have an accountancy department that is now law, that is now canon in what we're doing, and you just move on with it. And that kind of thinking also is really interesting to put adults, is a really interesting situation to put adults into, I think, when we're not used to playing in that way. But sort of a whole set of gamers who play role-playing games and so on, everybody else is used to seeing pretend as something that professionals do rather than something they can do off the top of their head.
Yeah, totally. What did everybody think Starshine was? I have an idea, but
I've just seen Brown Nose and I want to say that, but I think that's a bit mean.
Oh, yeah, I was.
Is that
You're
what you
so
were?
great. You're so great. I love that you caught that. Well done.
totally.
Yeah.
Well, and then Sally Sue, what were you? You were.
I was actually an optimist too, but I
You were the
found
optimist,
some things like kind of challenging to to play into that space and in this particular topic, right? But and while I will do like kind of like role plays in terms of managing like feedback and conflict. I'll facilitate those and we'll play in them. I don't usually do role playing like this, and so I found this fascinating. And really a way to like open my thinking, like Bill was saying too, like to have like the different kind of meeting formats and to be really intentional about the different roles that people play. And yeah, I think there's a lot of potential there that would open up, that could help teams and groups like see where their gaps are, right? When they're talking about like significant business issues, even to do it in like this was a, where do we go for lunch? but this could really also highlight, wow, here's where when you throw in some of the complications and all, like, oh, here's where we start to shift how we operate. And yeah.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Yeah, what do you think, Starshine?
Well, I'm thinking about a bunch of things, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can start to see how, because I know you've got a larger format workshop coming up.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, I think Bill's point about doing some intro play around improv would be really cool.
Yeah.
Like maybe just a yes and story or something to
Sure.
get people's
Yeah.
mind in that. And then I thought the bit where you, I don't think you need to explain as much when you do it for real.
Fair enough. Okay.
And you could, the bit where you rolled, hey, here's our format. Hey, here's our topic. Hey, here's a complication. We didn't have to think too hard.
Yeah,
And all we
that's
had to roll for was our characters, and that was cool.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I noticed that the topic plus the format we paid attention to, the type was irrelevant.
It's fair. Yeah.
You
We
know.
didn't use that as much, did we?
And I don't see how we could have
Yeah.
in this particular case. Because a progress check on lunch would be like, how's lunch going for you? Yeah, it's going okay for me. Is it going okay for you? Yeah, I'm halfway done with my lunch. Like, you about 3/4 done? Well, I'm behind schedule, but that's,
Yeah, or like, what would be sense making of lunch or something like that? It might
Like,
be overwrought in some way.
Is
Yeah.
lunch the first meal or the most important meal? And do they even have lunch in other countries? Not in tribes, they don't, Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think you needed it. I don't think you
Yeah, fair enough.
needed that part.
Yeah. That's really fair.
Yeah. I think as an ad for a little bit of game mechanics,
Yeah.
would love to see each round literally have a time on it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like,
Yeah, and I think to your point about this too, like I didn't really adhere to anything with like lean coffee and the timing that would usually be used in lean coffee as well, or like up down voting or any of that stuff. So I kind of like hand waved that a little bit too much maybe, and so maybe this gets to your point too. But yeah, the rounds.
yeah, maybe. But I also didn't know like are we really going to talk about all of these topics and just keep going until we totally get sick of each other and pretend we have to leave, or or is it 20 minutes and then that play test is over?
Well, that's why like the action points were an idea for like people contributing, but it felt like it was going to be too clunky to like get people to like marking down all of their like interactions and everything. And so yeah, maybe just like a timer for. Well, so let's look at the other meeting formats, for example. Like if we were to do like bullet points in discussion or silent meeting or something like that, I guess do we want to have, like, was it just because I didn't do the timing for the lean coffee and didn't set the rules correctly, or was it more because of the rounds of the actual conversation, in your opinion?
I was just never, I didn't have a sense of when we'd know we were done. Because it wasn't a real meeting, we didn't have a real goal, and it wasn't actually scheduled. So I think if you were to do this with a large group, let's say you've got tables of 4, right? And you guys please interrupt me if I'm over dominating feedback and being dumb. No. But let's say you've got, everybody, we've rolled, our topic is this, our format is that. Here's how to run it, and you've got 15 minutes, go.
Yeah.
And about 5 minutes, you go, oh no, a complication, you're executive. That's just overwritten everything.
That's really helpful. Thank you. Yeah, and thank you for, if there's more feedback too, I'd love to hear it from everybody.
Yeah. So I don't know if this will be helpful or not, but because I know this is a lot about me, and I assume there are other people out there like me, but I really struggle in these situations where the topic is kind of like, this wasn't abstract in the sense it was about lunch, but like hard for me to wrap my arms around. So I struggle with that in these kinds of sessions. And so I don't know if other people will or not. Like my experience in these sessions is that other people don't struggle with that. But I don't know, like out there, like I don't know what this group is that you're going to be. If there's a way to create some topics that are more that would be tangible in a different kind of way.
Yeah. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get what you're saying about it. I mean, I think it might be like, I mean, did that feel like you were being pushed in a way to do something that you wouldn't usually do, maybe, or was it because the topic was just like it's not something that was like interesting or that you really thought about a lot? Like, I guess what I'm looking for is like, was it the topic the problem, or was it your kind of personal style that was being pushed a little bit? Because I think if it's your personal style, I do wonder if that's somewhat of the purpose of this game is to have you try out
Oh,
different things in some way.
oh, no, actually for me it was more the topic,
Fair
right? So if
enough.
I
Okay.
want to, yeah, it wasn't like a real meaty topic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need
Although
to think
I'm trying,
about. Go ahead.
and I've been trying to stretch myself in that space since
Yeah.
I've, gotten involved with Mick and all, and
Yeah.
I'm making progress, but I
Yeah.
assume
Cool.
I'm not the only person that struggles in that space. So,
Yeah. What does everybody else think about the topic? Or the list of topics too, if you want to go and look at them, because I'm totally open to editing that right now. I'm just trying to decide what would be general enough for everybody to have some thoughts about, but something that we would actually have to like take action on or do like have a conversation about.
I think in the right setting, that's a good thing to put people up against, just because uh, again, from my personal experience, a lot of meetings, people sleep through is the wrong term, sleepwalk through, as
Yeah.
in this is just the way we behave, and just this makes your format makes your format makes the format of a meeting so clear and makes people step back and go, how do we actually talk to each other? How do we actually decide? And I think part of that, if there's useful uncomfortableness, as in, oh, there's nothing to grip onto here, and then also sharing that, like for me, one of the main advantages of sort of personality tests and so on, regardless of how good or bad they are, is it gets people talking about how they think, and suddenly it's like, oh no, you don't all think like me, even if speaking the same language or meeting roughly the same conclusions. There's so many different routes or how people value data and so on and so on and so on. So causing that by having relatively vague and low stakes discussions, things like music playlist, office snacks, office mugs. With all due respect to your choices, it's like it it kind of doesn't matter, but that's again an interesting thing to get people to talk about with each other, and see, and as I say, just contrast how they think with how each other thinks.
I have an idea. So I need a way to introduce improv mechanics, and you get these super generic topics. For every group, if they were going to have a meeting, there'd be some context around that topic. Have them tell the context. What's going on with lunch in your team? Do a yes and story. Whoever's new fake name is first alphabetically starts. We need to have a meeting about lunch because it's gotten nasty in the office and we need to go out. And then Sally would say, yes, and we haven't bonded as a team in a very long time.
That's a great idea. That gives you the
yeah, I
context for
like
people
that.
to grab on
But then also
and
you
get
can use
everybody.
your style there too a little bit to then
Mm-hmm.
mold the
Yeah.
topic area and everything. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Would that help, Sally Sue, with the kind of lostness in lunch that you were feeling?
Yeah, like if you had that, like it's kind of an intro activity, right? Kind of this
Mm-hmm.
yes and story, and then then I have I have some context. It's probably
Cool. That's great. What else? I mean, was there anything else that was kind of felt clunky or that you'd want more direction on or kind of pre-explanation? Because I like this idea of a warm-up session as well, because I kind of just forced the improv idea on you, and I realized that not everybody has even, like, I've read a lot of books about improv. I've never done personal improv, but I do work in styles of improv and yes and that's like terminology inside my work and stuff like that. So I'll definitely explain that more.
It was a surprise that Sally Sue was an exec all of a sudden.
that's true.
And I don't know how
Well,
you
yeah.
do that if you've got multiple plays going at the same time.
Yeah, and that was the thing too, is that like I think the mechanic that I was thinking of is what I did is I rolled the dice and it rolled 1, and so then I just went clockwise from me in the view, and so that was the plan, is that for anytime you have to like select someone, whoever rolls the dice, it's that number of people away from them essentially. That was the thinking, at least. But and also for that, I should have clarified, it was that the executive came in and then said Sally Sue's answer is the one that I agree with, and that was then went on. So. Anyways, I can tool that a little bit better, like as far as the description of these things. I think, and rewrite it a bit, but that was what it was meant to be. But it's fine. I thought it still played okay, even though like Sally was like the known executive. Was anybody a manager actually? Did anybody roll a 6 when they? No.
I did not.
I did. Cool. Well, I wrote, but I mean that was again that sort of said you'd be the leader of the meeting. Whereas I'm not sure that sort of applied to what we were doing, which again is just make the text clearer, or when you're facilitating this is something you'll immediately make clear to people.
Yeah, maybe I guess that's the question I have, is like, is that a valuable mechanism or not? And it didn't seem like it really came up, other than, you know what I mean? Like how would that's what I wanted to get, is like, how do power structures inside of these meetings actually also change the way the meeting works, right? That was the goal of that, but I don't know if it really worked out, is I guess what I'm saying. Yeah.
I feel like maybe that's too complicated for the first playthrough.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because like in the first playthrough, you've got new formats that people are experimenting, and you're experimenting with trying to adopt a mindset that may or may not be natural for you.
Yeah.
Which is a whole lot of education in one moment.
Yeah.
It might be interesting to do a second round where you've got where people, you know, go, you know, like do it, pick a number between 1 and 10, have everybody in the group silently, or whatever your mechanism is going to be, and establish hierarchy for a second round.
Yeah.
You know, in some way. And then new topic and play again and say, how did that change things, or did it?
Totally. Because it could be just like a modified version of the game. If you want to deal with like power structures in meetings, then you can use this type of rule. But if not, maybe just the simplified version of that is without power structures, at least, just to talk about the interaction of people instead, right? Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. Anything else? I mean, anything else that comes out? I mean,
So I will tell you, like, ironically, like you know, when I signed up for this session, I just read role playing, and I really was just introduced, not as a participant, but I just caught on to the LARP thing. The other day I was in a conversation with somebody who does a lot of that, and I'm like, oh, there it is again. Now I know what that means.
That's cool. That's really cool. I mean, I don't do LARPing as much, but I do actually like play role-playing games, and then also write modules for role-playing games. But they're usually like sci-fi and like horror and that type of thing. Anyways, that's why I've been thinking about the mechanics a bit. But I think this is like, I love the idea of like collaborative storytelling, and that's what this really is meant to be about. And I think it's also a place to experiment. That's the thing I'm still trying to kind of get through with this. So.
I will ask this. I don't know what your session is coming up, but is there? I'm wondering if there's a part of that that's like a debrief for the groups to look at, like things like what roles did they have and what other roles might have been helpful in that meeting that was not there. What did they not pay attention to, and what dynamics, depending on, I don't know the group or anything, but what dynamics did they notice that also show up in other real life business meetings? And
because I have like a postmortem section, which would be that kind of like reflection, but I think the questions need to be modified, to your point, like the guessing who was what, for example, or how does that make you feel, like how does it make you change the way you might approach meetings? We didn't ask those specifically, but I think that's a good idea, is to revise that section so it's a little bit more specific about the reflection part. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'll think about that a bit too.
I think it'd be pretty interesting too, given that you've got like you've got some audiences that will know those formats and know when you've done anything that isn't correct. That's right. Technically correct. That's right. And you've got some audiences who are like, wow, top voting, cool. You know.
Totally. So, well, this is that Agile Alliance, so I think like things like Lean Coffee will be known to them.
They'll be on it.
But then some of the other ones that I think are like, again, a silent meeting would just, I think is going to be like an interesting and weird thing to force someone to do, basically. So yeah. Cool. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate you. Are all amazing. And I really, if you have other feedback and you have the document now, if you want to add other comments to this as well as you think about things, I would love to get your feedback. I'm going to be revising it over the next couple days or so. And then, the next playtest will be kind of in 2 weeks, I guess, in Dallas during the Agile Alliance conference. And so there's like a games lab for Agile games that's there. So I'll be hosting this there, essentially.
Excellent. That's great to hear. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
We'll have,
thank you, everybody.
You're going to tell us how it went. So.
I will definitely. And I want to like write a little, like probably, I'm going to package this up a bit more. I'll post that. And then I'm also going to probably write like a short blog post, just kind of like about the experience of writing this type of game and everything. So thank you again so much. And if you don't mind, I will put your names as playtesters and as thanks inside the documents.
Yeah.
Starshine.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for letting us play.
I think you have the recording. So.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, if I believe so. So I'll post it or get it posted to the MIC as well.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay.